Johnny Mac and Jody Mac here with you on Birds 365. We got Chris Franklin from NJ.com going to join us day after guy here on Birds 365 coming up in less than 20 minutes from now. Johnny Mac, we've knit and picked the Eagles plenty as they're 4-0. Remember, 4-0. Haven't lost a game yet, but again, not a awe-inspiring victory against the Commanders yesterday, but a victory just the same. Around the league, the other two teams in the NFC did look pretty good. The 49ers were dominant again. I sound like a broken record with this, but at some point, some of the naysayers are going to have to catch up and realize and admit Brock Purdy can play. 20 of 21 yesterday, 20 and 21. And if you want to go along the, it's Kyle Shanahan's offense. Okay.
It's going to be Jonathan Gannon's defense this week. Yeah.
I watched some of that game yesterday. They had a couple of guys who were open, but he throws pinpoint passes. Just because he doesn't have a howitzer attached to his right arm, it doesn't matter how you get it there, just get it there. And he gets it there every single pass. Having Christian McCaffrey also run the football is not a bad thing to keep the defenses honest.
That dude is unbelievable. Christian McCaffrey, man.
He is a stone cold stud. And oh, by the way, you know what I saw yesterday, John, which I couldn't believe. And I meant to look this up after the game, but I was on the air till 10, and then I wanted to watch the end of the Jet game. Deebo Samuel did not touch the football until the fourth quarter yesterday because he was questionable as to whether he was going to play, and then he was going to be active, and he was. They didn't throw him the ball at all. Ayuk came back, who didn't play the week before, so Purdy's been doing this without two of its main weapons at close to 100%. But Deebo didn't get the ball. They finally ran an end around to him in the early fourth quarter of the game, which I just didn't understand. But the 49ers look good again. And if they beat the Cardinals. Well, yeah, the Cardinals beat the Cowboys the week before. And the Cowboys put a beat down out there last night against the Patriots, a team that the Eagles had to do some work against to just beat. The Lions are going to cakewalk to the NFC North. They've already beaten Green Bay and the other two. Minnesota going to win. Yes, I should give the Vikings a thumbs up.
Yeah, but they were terrible in a win. They just played a more terrible team. So, yeah, I'm with you. They're going to cakewalk to the NFC North, the Lions. And they're better, I think, than people realize. I thought Green Bay would be a little bit better, but their offensive line is struggling. Justin Fields showed up. Now, where'd that come from?
I put this out on social media on Saturday before my CBS show. I said, who says no to this trade? The Jets send Zach Wilson to the Bears for Justin Fields. The fresh start, clean the slate deal of all time. Two first-round draft picks that have struggled where they landed.
Who would rather? Yeah, that's a good question. I think if both teams were being honest, they'd want to move on from each, but they can't be honest. And they both played well yesterday.
That's the point. Yeah, they both played their best game in their careers as soon as I put it out there. So many people make fun of my hypotheticals, but I love my hypotheticals. That was a hypothetical question, hypothetical trade. And sure enough, both of them go out and play their best game ever in their careers.
Yeah. At one point, I checked because I was like, what the hell's going on? And the Bears ultimately blew it anyway.
Spit the bag,
But I think they were ahead, I don't know.
28-7.
28-7?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like looking at it at one point, just looking at the box score. He was 12 of 12 at one point, and he had a perfect passer rating. And I said, wow, boy, that Denver defense really is bad. And ultimately, they came back to win the game, Denver. But, yeah, I mean, these guys have talent. I say it all the time. People pile on Justin Fields. They pile on Zach Wilson. They have talent. Confidence is a crazy thing in this league because when you lose your confidence and bad things can happen. And I think they've both been in bad situations. Fields and Wilson. I told you, the Eagles love Zach Wilson. So it's not like the Jets were this stupid team that they were the only one that thought Zach Wilson could turn into something. And Justin Fields was a big time prospect as well. And every once in a while you see it, and they happen to both play pretty well on the same day, both in losing efforts, but really close. And the Jets, I mean, it's the Super Bowl champions, and he was better. He was the best quarterback on the field, technically.
Mahomes threw some god-awful passes last night, some just floating ducks that I couldn't believe. He did not look like Patrick Mahomes. But I will say this in defense of Justin Fields a little bit. At least the Jets play defense. Jets have one of the most talented defenses in the National Football League. Justin Fields has got to play with that Bears defense, which is brutal. And, you know, I'm a linebacker guy, and I think the linebackers have been de-emphasized in this league to an egregious level, as a matter of fact. They went out and spent a lot of money on linebackers this offseason, the Bears did. They're not getting results for their dollars. Our guy, Mr. Edwards, not exactly cleaning up that Chicago defense. Their defense is just terrible. They're brutal defense.
No, yeah, and Edwards is, you know, the guy they really spent. Tremaine Edmonds is the guy they really spent the money on. Terrell's brother. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, they have the worst front in football. They have the worst defensive front in football. So it doesn't matter if you have. I always talk about the Eagles building the right way. These other teams, man, it's like the Eagles are playing well. Not their best game, but you pointed out the linebackers played well. No, they didn't. They're playing behind the best front in football. So they have an opportunity. And by the way, that's one of the things.
Well, but then would you say the same thing about Edwards last year? I don't remember you saying that Edwards benefited from playing. You just said that he was as good as he was, one of the best linebackers in football.
There's no doubt that he benefited from playing behind the Eagles' defensive front. There's no doubt. You see it this year. He was the 6th best all-ball linebacker in the league per Pro Football Focus last year. I don't know what he is, down in the 50s this year.
Oh,
yeah,
terrible.
That's the difference between playing behind the best and playing behind the worst. And you see, one of the reasons I think Nicholas Morrow, and I think it was our buddy Brad Spielberger who said it, and he said, yeah, that's probably right. He didn't sign for any guarantee. He probably could have gotten a small guarantee somewhere else. I don't know that for a fact. But he probably saw an opportunity to go from the worst defensive front in football to the best defensive front in football. And all of a sudden you look better, and who knows, you might get another contract down the line. Now, they cut him and they brought him back because of injury. But here he is. He's out there playing, and we're talking about him. He's got 3 sacks. He's making all these tackles. He looks better because he's playing behind that front. And yes, the same thing goes with TJ Edwards, who looks worse because he's playing behind that front in Chicago. But what you say is Edwards plays better than Morrow. So, you know, that's where you sort of grading the scale. TJ's a better player than Nicholas Morrow. But yeah, he's definitely helped by playing the Eagles.
No, if we're talking about what they've done behind the very good Eagles defensive front, and oh, by the way, I don't think the Eagles defensive front was all that good yesterday. I think Morrow's as good, if not better, than TJ Edwards.
Ooh,
I know we're only a couple of games in, but TJ Edwards, please help me with the 3-sack game that TJ Edwards
had. That's, you know, again, that, you know, delayed blitz. TJ didn't blitz a lot. I mean, that's all, you know, that's all dependent. You know, people talk all the time about Jonathan Gannon. For whatever reason.
So the size that much more different than Gannon with his.
Well, he's different. For whatever reason, he ran a lot of delayed blitzes yesterday.
Good thing he did. Those were some of the biggest plays they had.
Not a lot, but, you know, but yeah, certainly that wouldn't have happened last year. So for people that want to, pile on JG, go ahead, because that probably wouldn't have happened. But I mean, if you don't have the opportunity, and we'll see. I'll see where he. I don't think he played as well, but I have to look at the game. I haven't rewatched it, but yeah, I don't think that's going to be a high. He was bad in coverage. I don't think that's going to be a high graded game for Nicholas Morrow. Yeah, but I could be wrong. It's not going to be a bad game, I think. But people say 3 sacks, and they think it's going to be like he's going to be the top graded linebacker. I don't think he played that kind of game.
I thought he played very well, as did Cunningham, who made 13 tackles. But again, because I thought the defensive line didn't play all that well, those tackles were coming downfield. Anytime you get a tackle, put up a tackle, it's a good thing. It looks good in the score sheet. Where did you make the tackle? Did you make the tackle 2 yards?
Now, you know what the most interesting thing to me is, Jody? When Nakobe Dean comes back, and Seth asked me this question on a post-game show. He's like, should Nakobe Dean start? Well, I kind of snickered. I'm snickering here. Yeah, he's going to start. But now, who would you rather have as the number 2 linebacker? Zach Cunningham or Nicholas Morrow? I think Nicholas has put himself in that conversation. I think he deserves to be in that conversation. He hasn't played poorly. I'm not trying to pile on Nicholas Morrow. I think he's helped by playing behind a great front, and he looks better because he's playing behind a great front. That's, I think he's played well.
Yeah, but I think that's the way the Eagles kind of look at it. That's why they got Nicholas Morrow and gave him no money. That's why they were able to pick up Cunningham off the scrap heap weeks into preseason, when every team in the league had months to sign him. They just believe that you can drop in a linebacker behind that defensive line, and anybody can get the job done.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, they're being proven right. Now, I don't think they've played as well as you do. So I think they could value the position a little bit more. And I've said pretty consistently, I think they've taken it too far. And I think Nakobe Dean doesn't have to worry about his job, as some are insisting. He's by far the best linebacker on this team. And I think that remains true. Now, I have questions about durability issues. I think those are real with Nakobe. But, yeah, I got to ask that question. I was a little taken aback by Seth asking me that question. Like, is Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow going to take Nakobe Dean's job? I mean, no. No. No.
Do you think that they'll use a more 3 rotational guy, though, that they'll play all of them? Or do you think one of them is going to be the odd man out, whoever it is? And Seth thinks it could be Nakobe Dean. You think it could be someone else. Do you think that there's any chance that it's kind of a rotational thing and all their snaps are similar?
No, I don't. I think, well, Nakobe's going to be the guy, and then it's a matter of who the weak side guy is next to him. Zach, Nicholas is chasing Zach for that job. Now, if they were different types of players, but their weaknesses probably coverage. And Zach is probably better equipped long term because he's long, and at least he can. Very smart player. At least he can get his long arms in the way of the occasional throw. So I still think he's probably going to end up on top. But I think it's fair to say that Nicholas Morrow has opened up that conversation. Will he be a better option than Zach Cunningham? But yeah, I think Nakobe is still the guy.
As do I, but Nakobe better hit the ground running, come back in and be playing well. Otherwise, the Eagles with their linebacker play for me yesterday made it a viable, questionable conversation. I got no, if I were in your spot and Seth was asking me that question, yes, I would have said that's a fair question. I think Nakobe gets plugged right back in as soon as he's ready to go, but he better play to a specific level. Otherwise, they may be flexible. I don't think Nakobe gets that job and they he's locked in for that position for the rest of the year. I think he's actually got to play to keep his job. The other linebackers, all three of them, putting some pressure on each other. All right, he's John McMahon. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac Birds 365 guys. Scheduled to join us next. Chris Franklin from NJ.com usually comes on the day after an Eagle game. The undefeated Eagles. Keep telling yourself that, Eagle fans. The undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. We'll come back and talk to Chris Franklin next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your